Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com. Just remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, this weekend has many fights. I believe the play of the weekend, in a weekend where you have people like Toney fighting Denis Lebedev, as well as other fights. George Groves against Paul Smith. I believe the play of the weekend, as I see it, if I had to make one bet, this would be the bet, is Michael Casitas over Ricky Burns. I've made a video on that fight. Give that fight a look. I think that's the strongest play because Casitas is going off at a less than minus 200 odds line, and I just don't see how Ricky Burns will be able to deal with Michael Casitas. I think Casitas walks through it. But there is another play on the board that's caught my attention. I'll be up front. I don't know who wins the fight, right? I'm uncertain of that myself, but I feel that the odds create compelling value. It's something you need to look at. It's worth a look. The underdog in the fight is Paul Smith. This is the George Groves Paul Smith fight, and the casino is giving you at least 3.5 to 1 odds of plus 350 on Paul Smith. Now, this is a fight between a Muhammad Ali, Andre Durrell type mover, and that's what George Groves is. And he's fighting a technician who hits hard, right? Paul Smith. Smith usually comes forward and tries to hunt you down, right? But Smith has been around the block, knows his way around the ring, and he has other gears. Now, I did make a video a while back on the Paul Smith versus James DeGale fight, and in that fight, I took James DeGale. I'm aware of Paul Smith's limitations. But let me just say this. George Groves is only 23 years old. Groves, in fact, was down in the third round against Kenny Anderson. I personally thought that Groves lost the James DeGale fight. I view Groves as a promising young boxer with limitations. And I'm not sure if at 23, with a career that at times has looked a bit spotty, even though he's unbeaten, I'm not sure if George Groves should be a 6 to 1 favorite over a skilled veteran like Paul Smith. Let me go further. There is a way to beat the Ali/Andre Durrell style. And I would encourage everyone to look at a fight that I consider to be a masterpiece from the 1970s. It's Jimmy Young, underrated in history, right? The same Jimmy Young who beat George Foreman, right? It's Jimmy Young against Muhammad Ali. And what you're going to see is that, Young forces Ali to take the lead, and it completely destabilizes Muhammad Ali. Ali, at one point, who's accustomed to being the submissive. Let's go off-road for a second. Just imagine you're a couple, and there's a dominant and a submissive during your private moments, right? You have a little role play going on, and it works. Now just imagine it's boxing, and the submissive is actually throwing punches at you and moving around the ring. The Durrell, Groves, Ali style works when they're facing a dominant, when they're facing a James Kirkland type, someone who is hunting you down, someone who's coming forward, Marvin Hagler, right? That's when that dance around the ring style works because as the opponent comes forward, the movement keeps them guessing. And of course, as they turn, they're getting hit with jabs, right? And of course, they can't bridge the distance between themselves and the mover. But that moving style actually falls apart when the opponent is able to take a step back and say, hey, you know what? You be the dominant for this fight, right? You're moving all over the ring. There's no reason for you to move. I'm here. You go ahead and take the lead, right? Counterpuncher, you be the lead puncher. I believe Paul Smith has those skills, right? What Paul Smith has to do is to not come in and try to hunt George Groves. I believe what he wants to do, or what he should do to win this fight, is to come in and force George Groves to hunt him. I disagree with Adam Booth. I have a lot of respect for Booth. He's the trainer for George Groves. He was the trainer for David Haye. But I disagree with Adam Booth. I personally feel that if George Groves starts to hunt Paul Smith, what he's going to find is that Smith is the better technician with the bigger punch, right? It's counterintuitive, but what Smith has to do in this fight is to take a step back, right? Fight a bit off his back foot. Play a cat and mouse game. And if he does that, I believe George Groves, who I consider to be a little bit overrated, falls apart. Keep in mind, Groves has only been fighting professionally since 2008. It's only been 3 years. And my point is simply, when you get a mover to stop moving, that's when you have the moment of truth. Ali was so desperate against Jimmy Young that he literally stopped fighting at one point and begged Jimmy Young, literally. If you look at the video, you'll see Ali standing there going like this to Jimmy Young. He begged Jimmy Young to pursue him, right? All I'm saying is, if Paul Smith decides to just play the counterpuncher, to just force George Groves to stop moving and to come pursue him, this fight's going to be extraordinary. Just imagine a first round where George Groves is moving around the ring, backing away on his back foot, and Paul Smith is also on his back foot. What's Groves' next move? Is he advanced enough to switch out of that style into something else? I haven't seen that in his fights. I don't think he should be a 6-1 favorite. I think Paul Smith at 3.5-1 is a live underdog. I don't know who wins the fight. I personally consider this fight to be a toss-up. For gamblers, I believe it's worth a look. Take a look at this one. I wouldn't be surprised if the outcome is as controversial as the DeGale George Groves outcome. Keep in mind, a 6-1 favorite you would think would win 6 out of 7 matches. I don't believe George Groves beats Paul Smith 6 out of 7 times. I think this fight's a toss-up. I think it's one of the more interesting fights this weekend. Let me close with some thoughts on James Toney coming in, weighing 199 pounds for his fight against Denis Lebedev. It's all over the net. Everyone's saying, oh, Toney's back. Toney made weight. This fight's on. You know, fitness is a lifetime pursuit. When you look at Bernard Hopkins, right, when you look at the guys who've been successful at 40 and up, right, Vitaly Klitschko, Bernard Hopkins, Evander Holyfield, Glenn Johnson, these guys make fitness a lifestyle, right? Vitaly Klitschko, Bernard Hopkins, these guys are always in shape, right? I'm sure when Bernard Hopkins tries to make weight, he probably never has to lose more than 10 pounds, right? He's always in range, right? Those are the guys who preserve their reflexes and preserve their bodies, right? Those are the guys who are able to operate in the ring in their 40s. It's not enough to be out of shape and then to go on a hardcore nutritional regime, get yourself a sophisticated trainer, and then be able to come in at weight for the weigh-in and then enter the fight. Because all I'm saying is, when you get to the later rounds, your lack of general fitness, your lack of the kind of fitness that a fitness buff like Bernard Hopkins or Vitaly Klitschko has, because these guys are always in shape, right? Your lack of fitness in the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th rounds, it's going to show. So I applaud James Toney for making weight. That doesn't tell me that at 200, James Toney is as in shape as, let's say, someone like Steve Cunningham, who is always in shape and is always around 200 pounds, right? You know, it's a bit of an illusion to think that a guy makes weight so that he's healthy at that weight. That's not the way it goes. Guys who lose weight to make weight, like Roberto Duran against Ray Leonard in the rematch, often have cramps, often have stomach problems, often have problems later in fights when their body starts to feel the rigors of the athletic competition. So I applaud James Toney. The fact that he made weight doesn't change my prediction. I'm expecting Denis Lebedev to beat James Toney. Let's remember, James Toney lost weight. He didn't lose years, right? He's still a guy in his 40s. You know, all I could say about James Toney's pre-fight bravado and predictions is that I heard the same pre-fight bravado and predictions before he fought Randy Couture in a UFC match, and he didn't last long there, right? Let's remember, too, James Toney lost twice to Sam Peter, right? When you look at the Toney highlights, don't go back 10 or 15 years, right? Don't view Toney at his best. View Toney in the present, because unfortunately Toney at his best is not fighting Denis Lebedev, right? Only Toney today is fighting Denis Lebedev. And, you know, all I'm saying is, I know the fight's in Russia, but even if this fight were at a neutral site, understand that Denis Lebedev is a handful to deal with. He fought Marco Huck in Germany. Personally, I felt he beat Marco Huck, right? Let me just point out, too, I believe I have a video someplace on YouTube where I predicted Lebedev would beat Marco Huck. This is a world-class fighter. He fought Alexeyev. Take a look at that video. He went to the UK to fight Enzo Maccarinelli, and he beat Enzo in the UK, right? This is a guy who's able to carry his game wherever he goes. And so don't think for a second that Lebedev is favored because he's fighting in Russia. I believe Lebedev, quite frankly, would be favored against James Toney if they were fighting in Las Vegas. He's a real cruiser, in my opinion. He's an uncrowned champion. I believe he beat Marco Huck. And he's facing a guy unfamiliar with cruiser. I know Toney fought Jirov years ago. He hasn't fought a cruiser for years, and he's in his 40s. The fact that he made weight today, I applaud him. That doesn't change my prediction. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here on YouTube. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for watching.